The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning, listeners. I'm Rick Sense, and with me today as co-host is Terry Pinch. Terry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, despite the fact I'm looking out my window at about 4 or 5 inches of snow still on April 4th as we record this show. But I got to expect April snow occasionally in Wisconsin.
Yeah, especially after the lack of snow all winter. So
yeah,
I always find it enjoyable to have to go out and shovel spring, but it is what it is. So. This morning, joining Terry and I on the show is a friend of mine that I've known for many years, and I want to stress the word friend, is Doug LaViolette. Doug is one of the most interesting people I've ever gotten the opportunity to meet and know. He's somebody I look to as a mentor, somebody I look to as someone I can run advice by and get his counsel from time to time in life, and has always been a good use of my time whenever I've interacted with Doug. So I hope you feel the same way after listening to the broadcast this morning. And Doug, welcome to the show.
Well, I hope the listeners feel the same way. No, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you on, Doug. Doug, maybe we could start off with, you're an interesting person and you have many interesting pursuits in life, and maybe we can start on the LaViolette Group as the starting point. Can you maybe let listeners know what that is and what do you provide to your customers as far as products or services?
You bet. Normally I wouldn't start off with our mission statement, but it kind of really sums things up in just a few words. And the LaViolette Group in itself, when I say group, it's really my wife Renee and I who run this company, but it's the network of all of our friends and suppliers that we've met over the last 3 or 4 decades that can help us provide meaningful things to people, because the mission statement itself reads to help you recognize, reward, and remember the important people in your life. And in your life can mean in your business, in your personal relationships, and whether that business is a corporation or whether it's nonprofit work, that's who we support. But we try and do things that are meaningful to someone when they receive a corporate gift or a commemoration piece. We support large corporations. We support the military organizations, military defense groups, and all branches, Army, Navy, Coast Guard primarily. And we've been doing this quite a while, surprisingly longer than I realized till I received your questionnaire. So
you've been serving others for the bulk of your career, and that's really what the LaViolette Group is doing. Could you maybe, since I've known you, you've always impressed me with your commitment to excellence and always striving to be the best. And I sense that you expect that in others as well, but not in a harsh way, but in a welcoming way. Can you maybe walk listeners through why you believe that being the best is at what you do and bringing out the best in others is so important to you?
I personally believe that quality will outlast quantity, and it's really everything you touch. It's not only the quality of the product, but the impression it leaves on someone when they receive it. And it can be a really simple little item, but that item can transcend really what you want someone to remember you by as well. I mean, my joy when we deliver something to a client is the reaction they have, as well as the recipients on who will receive it from them. And we've been doing this for a long, long time. And it really started in my hometown of O'Connell when I was a teenager, and I was so lucky because I had a chance to work with extraordinary men that are both gone now. But I was able to see how they interacted with customers and how they treated them. And it made such an impression on me that from those teenage years, I went into the military, into the Army. And after I did my time, I came back and was able to work with my mom and dad and their company. And from there, just grew it from this town of 5,000 to when we branched out into Green Bay and then eventually into Appleton. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
And did your parents have the same business, same type of business?
No, well, they had two different businesses, which gave me the opportunity to work with business leaders. They had, when I got out of the service in 1970, I came back thinking I was just going to spend a year with my mom and dad. They were going through kind of a rough patch with the business. My dad was getting a little older and maybe took his eye off the ball a little bit. And my mom was so dedicated that she worked every day, and I could see they needed some help. So I was just going to help them in the paper business, which was it was a weekly shopper, like a penny saver. I don't know if you have one in the Fox Valley. Ours was called The Reminder, and it was started on August 11th, 1931. So it was at the height of the Great Depression, and it used to be called the Daily Reminder. And it was a single sheet of paper, sometimes on a big day, 2 sheets of paper that were hand delivered to every home in O'Connell. And you look at these ads from 1931, and they were bartering, a chicken for services, because people didn't have money. And that publication was the oldest shopper in America. And when I started with them, it was delivered weekly in O'Connell. But I had the idea of, we should be county-wide. So then I made sales calls throughout O'Connell County to all these other business owners. And so, we would solicit the advertising, lay out the advertising in copy, print it on a Tuesday, deliver it on a Wednesday, and then start it all over again on a Thursday. I mean, it was never ending, but it was great. So I met all these great people. And then my dad, was really good at business machines. So he had, the business machine side of it, and my mom had the office supply side. So I don't know, I got sucked into that vortex of that business, and I kind of liked it. But my dad never sold office furniture. And I thought, why doesn't he do that? Well, the market in O'Connell County is pretty tiny for furniture, office furniture. But I did convince him that we should pick up a couple lines, good lines, what I call A grade. And one was Invincible office furniture out of Manitowoc. And I love that part of it. And then when we picked up a couple lines there, then I was able to, and I saw your question about, the strategic plan. I don't know if there was ever a strategic plan in those beginning years. You just thought, how can we grow this? And we then received a number of different furniture companies in Oconto County. We got the franchise for these brands, really good brands. And then after we had them and we did a good job with them and we paid our bills, then we moved to Green Bay. And by doing that, we were able to maintain the lines and then start this business in Green Bay. And it worked. Bob Safford was a dear friend of mine. He owned the Bellin Building and the Northland Hotel. I worked for him when I was a teenager. He introduced me to Jake Rose at Associated Bank. Jake, it was all on a handshake. And our line of credit was $26,000 to start this company. And it was like $26 million. It was a big number to me. And it was all on a handshake. And, we grew it from, one location. We started in the Northland Hotel of all places. We had a little showroom. And then we expanded into the Bellin Building, both owned by Bob Safford. And then eventually we outgrew those locations and went to another in Green Bay on Hanson Road, outgrew that. And then finally, our last location for executive office interiors was on Mason Street. And we developed a following there and grew that into a successful company and expanded into Appleton. And part of the reason of the success with the furniture division, we had executive office suites. So we rented furnished office space in both Green Bay and Appleton. And that proved to be a really good model.
So with the move to Appleton, what did you do differently in Appleton that you did in Green Bay or in the Oconto area?
That's a great question. We didn't do a lot of we didn't do a lot different. It was harder, much harder in the Fox Valley because we weren't as connected as we were in Brown County. But we had good friends like John Bergstrom and some other good folks that trusted us and believed in us. And eventually it worked. It was very hard. It was hard though. It wasn't easy. Nothing's easy. I mean, if anybody said business is easy, they're lying. It wasn't. But people believed in what we would do. And Fritz, Marizon, the Marizon family, they had a terrible fire which destroyed their building on Lindale. And I approached them after the fire and we offered them the use of, we had a used furniture division as well. So we offered them free use of free furniture. If you need to get set up next week, just let us know. So we brought trucks of furniture, use desks, chairs, files, whatever they needed, just to get up and running and get started. And then eventually we ended up furnishing their whole new corporate facility, but we just felt it was the right thing to do. They were a customer. They lost everything. My parents went through 2 fires. I had an idea from what they told me what it was like, to start from scratch. So we thought, well, we should do that. So we did. And
okay, we're at the spot for our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Biz Talk on WHBY Radio. I'm your host, Rick Sense, along with Terry Pinch today, co-hosting. And our guest is Doug LaViolette from the LaViolette Group. But before we continue our conversation with Doug, I'd just like to spend a few moments talking about SCORE. Fox City SCORE serves an 8-county area with offices in Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac. We have about 45 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those experts include people that have knowledge of IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail, best practices, and many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about the Fox City SCORE chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. And to support small business people, Fox City SCORE is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience and expertise can really make a difference to their success. Go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application. And someone will get back to you and explain even more. Thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. And Terry, why don't you go ahead and continue our conversation with Doug?
Doug, in the first segment, you had a great story about how you were working with your parents' business and were expanding that. But you've made a lot of changes since then. Could you talk about that transition to the gifts and recognition business and how that happened and why you did that?
Sure. It's really unusual. I'd always believed in the business or that business model. Over the years, I felt it's a great investment in branding to have ideas and present good things to people in product. But what happened after we sold the company in 1999, I ended up getting involved with a company that we started called Tenfold, and it was getting a group of individuals that I called really close friends and represented them, and basically connected their businesses with others. And during that time, I ended up growing Brian's Foundation to a point where we were given the opportunity to host the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's annual convention in Green Bay. And it was the first time the convention was ever held in Green Bay, and it was in 2007. And I took on that position. It was an unpaid position. So I volunteered my time as the chairman of that convention to pull these living recipients to come here and to have the state of Wisconsin recognize their service and their heroism. Well, to do that, you need financial commitments. You need hundreds of individuals who volunteer and support them. And that was the foundation's mission, to do this. So I did, as I was looking at that, trying to think, how do you make these Medal of Honor recipients feel special? And I had been to a number of their national conventions and regional conventions and looked at what they were given by the host committee. And a lot of it was mediocre stuff. It was just stuff. And I don't think it was really appreciated. It's like a celebrity that gets all these things that really don't mean a lot to them. And I thought, how are we going to change that model? So I went out and I didn't do it alone, but I was able to work with these tremendous volunteers from all the different areas that we need to secure the safety of these recipients, the housing of them, the transportation, the protection, all of it. And I thought, how do we make them feel good? Because they're volunteering all their time. So it was as simple as having a gold lapel pin in the shape of a shield that had a Medal of Honor symbol on it and a security badge. And they received that in a ring box, and some of them were brought to tears that they received this lapel pin that they wore as their security pass for the event. And you realize how meaningful it was to give something so important. The recipients, before they came, we had gifts that we would mail them, welcoming them to Green Bay. And I remember in November, I believe it was the Thanksgiving gift of 2006, we sent them a blanket and said, it's kind of cold in Wisconsin, but when you get here next summer, you're going to be welcomed with such warmth. So we worked on that concept, and the blanket was a powder blue blanket to match the Medal of Honor ribbon. And it was so meaningful to these guys that years after the convention, I received this beautiful letter from the daughter of a recipient who wanted another blanket because someone stole her dad's blanket from the nursing home. And it had such meaning we're talking about a $30 or $40 blanket.
Yeah. But
it had such meaning to him that when he died, he wanted to be buried in it, with it. You can't make this stuff up. Mm-hmm. So it was a touch point. And after the convention, it was like, after 3 years of laboring and doing that, volunteer, I had to get back to work and get paid. So I thought, well, now what? So I thought, I think there's something here that I can carry this idea and this meaningful work on to other Medal of Honor conventions. So I've done a number of them across the country, helping the host committee have meaningful gifts that they give. Because to this day, the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients feel that the Green Bay Convention was the best convention they've ever attended. And we raised $585,000 to put that convention on. It was 10 days long by the time they came and they left. Woody Williams, the last recipient of World War II, said, I'm going to be up in Wisconsin so long, I'm going to have to apply for citizenship. It was the longest convention anybody ever went to, ever. And now these conventions, they raise $3 to $5 million to put them on, which is kind of ridiculous.
Well, we're at the spot for our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. We're talking to Doug LaViolette from the LaViolette Group. And before we get back to Doug, I just wanted to give a quick update on some education opportunities. We talk to you regularly about the SCORE website at score.org/Fox Cities, and how there's a tab at the top for workshops and events. And if you click on that tab, there's a lot of different upcoming events. There's webinars, there's courses, etc. One thing I did want to mention, though, is on the left, there's a location choice, and the default is national. But if you go to the next level and click any location, there are literally hundreds of courses coming up. So there are some that you'll see nationally, but there's a lot more locally. And you can watch and register for events from any of the 200 plus chapters across the U.S., and there's a lot of good ones. So again, score.org/Fox Cities, the workshops and events tab, and click on location as any location.
Thanks, Terry. And Doug, in the last segment, you mentioned a person by the name of Brian. Could you maybe let listeners know who Brian is?
Yeah, I'm proud to. Brian was our 15-year-old son that we lost in a swimming accident on August 8th, 1992. And, for all, many of you might be aware of the foundation, but Brian was a great kid, and we were so blessed to have him in our life, even for that short time. But the day of his funeral, on August 17th, we made a promise to him that we all will accomplish great things in his name and memory. And with that, we started with $22,000, which is an enormous amount of memorial money at a funeral. We started with that, and we began with one scholarship at his high school in West De Pere, and from there, it wasn't by plan, it wasn't any grand thought process, but to date, we've awarded 1,011 scholarships in 18 states and 3 foreign countries. And the dollar amount is $1,017,800. The first million was the hardest, but we feel so blessed because of the support we've had. And part of the reason we've gone into so many states is through the Scholarship of Honor. And that scholarship is to recognize an individual who is going into public service. And that public service is anything from teaching, nursing, EMT work, the ministry, active duty military, or reserve. And there's nothing like it in the United States, which is the reason I think it grew to this point. And we're very proud of that and what it represents. Because the reason one of the reasons we started that was through the Medal of Honor. It was designed to represent and honor Medal of Honor recipients. And when we started it, shortly after it was started in 2004, Nicole Fry was killed in Lena. And we thought, if we can honor Medal of Honor recipients, we can honor a PFC from the Army and this young woman who was killed shortly after she arrived in Iraq. So one led to another, and it's been quite a legacy for these families. But with that thought, the Bryan's Foundation has grown to a point because of our daughter. Our daughter, Kim, does the heavy lifting. I'm the sales guy. We have a phenomenal board of directors that gives us good guidance. And we're looking at the next phase, the next transition. You know, who carries the baton when my wife, Renee, who, you know, has supported me through all of these adventures in business and in life and the foundation. What happens when we're gone? You know, who's going to take over and carry the torch? So we're very blessed. Our daughter Kim has been doing this. Sadly, she never asked to be involved in this. She never wanted to lose her brother. She's been involved with this from day one. So 32 years now. She's been going on 20 years as our one and only employee. But she's going to transition to a point where now our niece, Kristen, is going to be taking over for Kim. And Kristen lives in Green Bay because we want to grow the foundation for Northeastern Wisconsin. Not that, you know, awarding scholarships in 18 states isn't good, or 3 foreign countries isn't good. It's great, and it's fulfilling this promise to Bryan. But we're going to bring it back to Northeastern Wisconsin and grow the scholarship that started with Bryan, and carry on his legacy throughout Northeastern Wisconsin even more. So we're working on that. That's the next big phase to the foundation.
I know you've had a lot of opportunities over the years to inform the community and work with the community on the work that the foundation is doing. And can you maybe walk listeners through one of my favorite campaigns that you've done involved timepieces. And I know your son was an avid watch collector and lover. Could you maybe talk to listeners about that and how that impacted the foundation?
Yeah, I love it. Bryan, when he was 4 years old, he received his first wristwatch, and it was a Green Bay Packers watch. It was Swiss made. It was called Lafayette. And it was a manual, so he had to wind it. And he wore that watch until he was old enough to get his allowance and part-time job money. And then he started to buy wristwatches. And he collected 6 of them in his lifetime, actually 7. And when our grandson Walker was born, as a grandfather, you're thinking, what are you going to pass on to your grandson that he's going to remember you? And I thought, well, a wristwatch would be a very cool thing. At one point I was into wristwatches a lot, and anyway, I thought, well, that would be a cool thing. I can have it engraved. So I thought, well, you know what? Before I end up going out and buying a nice watch for Walker, I've got to go back and find his watches. And I knew they were in his bedroom dresser drawer. So I went into our storage area off-site, where all our furniture from Brian's room was stored. And it was one of those hard moments, but I went through all his dresser drawers, and in these drawers, he had all his watches. So I found them all, brought them to a watchmaker, and to this day, I wear at least one of Brian's watches, and it still works. I'm going to show it to the guys. There it is. It's a Casio. And it's amazing. It was 28 years it hadn't seen the light of day, and put a new battery in it, and it hasn't stopped since. So I wear this particular watch every day, at least part of the day. But that gave me an idea for our next fundraiser, and it was at the height of COVID. Everybody was home, everybody was locked in, and I thought, we're going to sell watches somehow. We're going to solicit watches from famous people and then sell them. Well, the highlight was the watch from the Holy Father, Pope Francis, and it was a Swatch watch. The watch we got from the Holy Father was valued at $50, and we auctioned it in Chicago and received $56,250 for a $50 watch. And that just springboarded the whole idea. We've got another watch auction in New York the end of the year. We're coming out with a limited edition watch for Brian's Foundation that someone is doing for us. We didn't ask. We're doing 154 watches, 2 different sizes. And, it's just a pretty amazing run. It's actually phenomenal. So we're very blessed. Brian, when he wrote "The Journey is the Reward" on a 3x5 card and pinned it to the wall in his bedroom. And that young guy was wiser than it seems like so many people that we bump into. We're very blessed to carry that legacy on.
The journey is reward. How do you feel, Doug? Do you feel that you've lived that journey yourself? And is there a reward from all your travels and all the experiences you've had so far?
I do. I really, really do. It's, when you think back, at your life and all the volunteers you have at SCORE and all these minds, that help others, that's really the reward. I mean, it's not stuff. It's not, it's not the biggest house. To me, I don't know. It's us. It's, I believe it's how you can help others. And at the same time, that just brings joy back into your life and your family. Joe Murphy, is the entrepreneur. Write his name down and go find him, because he'd be a great SCORE volunteer. For years, I had breakfast with Joe every Saturday. And he'd say, well, tell me who you met this week. Tell me what you've done for the foundation this week, or what you've done for the business. And one day he said, you should write a book, your second book, and it should be titled "The People My Son Introduced Me to." And if you really think of it, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation without Brian and without the people that, he introduced me to you, Rick, in a way, because I met you through Reed Ribble, and now I know Terry, and somehow I'm going to know his niece. And it's all because of this young man. And we think that's a great thing.
So I just am amazed by, the opportunity that you've had in life, Doug, with having such adversity thrown your way and what you've done with it. What advice do you have for people that are maybe facing some sort of adversity in their life, and what would you tell them?
Boy, great question. I think you should, this is me, I think you should surround yourself with people who really care about you, and you have to care about them. It's not a one-way street. And if you're going through a tough time, I'm an alcoholic, and when we wrote our book, I was going to put that in there, and that didn't make the cut. It hit the cutting floor. But I think it's just important that, when you go through tough times, you need other people to help you, and you should reach out and ask them. And I thought after losing Brian, if I can get through that without another drink, I'm golden. And I think the only reason I was able to do that is because of the friends that you surround yourself with and bring into your life. But then you have to help them too.
All right. Thank you for that. We are at the spot for our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk. I would like to thank our sponsors who bring Biz Talk to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Haling & Associates. Haling & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Haling & Associates, personal connection, positive results. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to the Business News, you should. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. And in the near future, again, we will be talking about a new sponsor we've gotten. We're just wrapping that information up, but we are really appreciative of all our sponsors. And we'll turn back now to Doug LaViolette. And Doug, could you let people know how they can find the LaViolette Group and the Brian LaViolette Foundation?
Well, thank you. The LaViolette Group is the best kept secret in America. And I mention that only because that part of our business is really all referral. I don't have a website. I don't have a Facebook page. I guess I have a Facebook page, but I haven't updated it in 12 years or something. But obviously our passion and our life's work and the most meaningful work we do is for the Brian LaViolette Scholarship Foundation. And people can find that by Googling or keying in LaViolletteFoundation.org. And when you click on that, people can get to me. They can get to our daughter. I can be reached anytime. I'll give you my phone number, 920-655-4098. And people can call anytime.
Okay. And what I'll say to listeners too is please go to the Brian LaViolette Foundation website. There's an awful lot of information there. And if you're ever thinking not as highly about young people as maybe people think you should, or you think you should, go on this site and there's two tabs under the news. One is called Where Are They Now? And the other is called The Journey Continues. And if you look at some of the stories on there, they're just incredible of what the foundation has done for people and what these people have done with the opportunity it gives them. So thinking back on being a community and building up from the work that Doug mentioned in Oconto and then moving to Green Bay and Appleton and taking all that community and now expanding it beyond that, and with the foundation and the impact that he's had on the the Valley and on young people is just phenomenal. So again, Doug, we'd like to thank you for that and for all you've done, because we know without the Brian LaViolette Foundation, there'd be so many young people, over 1,000, who would not have the opportunities that you've been able to give them, in addition to all the other great work you've done that you talked about with the Medal of Honor recipients. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Terry, and Rick for having me as a guest. And what I didn't mention is after we lost Brian, our focus as a family was very, very difficult running a company. And I had a representative of SCORE visit me and really help me get through a tough time, because we were selling furniture, and furniture and design is just stuff. And yet it was very important to the people we were trying to serve. And I lost my way in that furniture world for a while, but someone from SCORE came to visit me and really helped me get through a tough time. So, it meant a lot. And one of the reasons I'm here today with you.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that and are glad to hear of people who've gotten value from SCORE. And thank you for all the value you've delivered. For people out there listening, if you want to listen to this again, it'll be on our website, biztalkwithscore.com, in a few weeks. There you can also hear a lot of different shows that we've done in the past as well. So we'd like to thank Doug and thank everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week. Have a great one.